Hi, I'm Steve Finn from Dr. Finn's Games, and I'm here to show you how to play Nanga Parbat um, in Tabletopia. So I'm going to talk about the rules, but also some things that you can do in Tabletopia um, in case you're not familiar with this platform. I myself am still just learning how to use it. In any case, Nanga Parbat is a two-player game. You are representing the Sherpa people who will be going up in the mountain, collecting some animals for food and clothing, but also establishing some base camps that you'll use to help mountaineering groups. It's essentially an abstract game. Your goal is to try to score the most points. And I'm just going to talk about as we play. I'll just play it a little bit so you can see how it works. So let's assume that blue is let's say that pink is going to be the first player. That would mean that blue places this guy. He is called the guide. And he would pick one of the 6 regions. So you'll notice the board has 6 bigger areas, and each area is divided into 6 smaller areas. The big areas are regions, and the small areas are sections. So we're going to say, let's assume that blue starts the game by putting it on 2. What that means now is that pink, the first part of your turn, so I'll go down here and you can see the turn steps. The first part of your turn is to trap an animal. There's 4 steps. Trap an animal, place a hiker, move the guide, and then if you want, you can score by building camps or trading animals. So let's zoom out a little, come back up here. So the first player is responsible for placing the guide. The first player technically is pink, but blue will place the guide. So pink now has to, on the first step, is trap one of these animals. Let's assume that blue or pink, the pink player just wants to take this guy here. So he takes that guy, moves him over to this. The blue animal, they all have their particular names, and I think that's the tar. I haven't learned them yet myself. But the blue animal is basically going to function as a wild later in the game. So what I did was I took an animal. The second part of pink's turn would be to place a hiker. So the hiker goes in there. Now notice I have to move the guide. Where do I move the guide? Well, the hiker is put in the section number 1. And so the guide now has to go to the region number 1. So each little triangle here is a microcosm of the whole. And so if I place in 1, I have to move the guide to 1. And now it will be blue's turn. So blue would then take a turn doing the same thing by taking an animal. Now the red animal's power is to, I'll just zoom in on that for a second. The red panda, at the time of picking it up, if you have equal to or fewer victory points than your opponent, you score 1 point. So right now, blue and pink are at the start of the game with 25 with no points. So blue scores a point for taking the red panda. Okay. The other animals, just so you know, they come up here to start, but then when you want to use it, you'll slide it down. So the pink player, for example, could take, well, he didn't. This is a wild, so when you're trading in animals. But if this were a black animal, for example, it would go here, and then when I want to activate it, I'd slide it down. Okay. So right now then, it's blue's turn. He took an animal. So the first part is to take an animal. The second part is to place the guide, the hiker. And now because I placed in 3, I have to move the hiker down to 3. And now it's going to be pink's turn. So I've skipped ahead a few moves here, and so that you can see. So you got the basic idea of the turn steps. Take an animal, place a hiker, move the guide. Now, during the game, you can also build camps or trade animals, and that's how you score points. So let's assume that it's blue's turn. To build camps, what you can do is take any adjacent set of hikers. Now, it doesn't have to be like this. I'm just going to move this around for an example. Any adjacent. Now, you'll see these dotted lines connect the triangle, the corner pieces with other spaces. So you can take any connected set of hikers, you remove them from the board, and then you replace them with camps. Now in Tabletopia, if you hold the Shift key down and you left click these, you can then let go of the Shift key and then you could drag 4 of them over. So then I would put those in. I've built these base camps with my 4 workers. And then I take one of my scoring cubes, and you'll notice this is the camp symbol. And I did 4, so blue would score 5 points. So blue would go up from 1 to 6. So you'll notice that I can turn up to 6 camps. So if I had 6 adjacent hikers, I could score 7 points. If I had 5 adjacent hikers, I could score 6, and so forth. Now during the game, I can only place 5 scoring cubes. So there's 4 of them there. There's my 5th. And you can only place 1 cube per turn. Okay? So that's how you would score points for building camps. Now that would be something that you do at the end of your turn. So you always do these 3 things, and then you can do the 4th as optional. Now the other thing you could do is trade animals. So let's assume, I'm going to move these down, because they can be activated or not. I haven't talked about the powers of animals yet. But right now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 different animals, but this one can count as wild. So let's assume that I wanted to trade in 3 of the same. I could take these off my board, and then I would score up here. Let me zoom in so that you can see that. Whoop. So this is different animals, and this is the same animals. So if I have 3 of the same animals, I score 6 points. And now, oh, this is good. I'm glad that I did this. Because if I land on 6, you get a free point. So if you land on the person that, the other person, you get to move past them. Okay, so the game can never end in a tie. Whoever moves on top of another person gets to move to the next space. So there's 3 ways then for you to score. Okay, you can build camps. As long as you build this many, notice that you can build 3 camps. The first person build 3 camps will score this. The next person will score that. It could be the same person. And then over here we have different animals, and then here we have the same animals. So that's the 4 parts of your turn. And then you can also, anytime during your turn, you can perform special actions. So let's just talk about what those are. So over here, let me just grab a couple of animals, just so I get, there we go, I'm gonna put that there and that there. Okay, so what this one allows me to do is on my turn, and you can activate as many animals as you want anytime during your turn, you slide it down, and now you activated that animal. In this case, I can switch 2 adjacent hikers. Usually, it makes sense to switch. Well, it only makes sense if you're switching the opponents. So you can switch the opponents. So for example, I don't know, let's assume that these guys were here. I can move this out of the way. And I wanted to get this pink guy closer. So these 2 are adjacent. I'd be able to switch those 2. So that's what that does. This guy, you slide it down, it allows me to switch an animal with a person. So I could now switch these 2. If I was pink, that would make sense, right? That would be the way to do that. And then this is, so notice, these 2, you have to be adjacent. The 2 items have to be adjacent. This is anywhere. So the gray deer, I could switch any 2 animals anywhere. So if I was in here, and it was my turn, and there was a particular animal I really wanted, let's say I wanted this, I could switch these out. And now I could take my turn, put my hiker there, and move into that spot. Let's put that guy back. Okay, so that's what the deer does, switch 2 animals anywhere. And then this one is, you can move the yak down to move the guide. So if it starts in a place where I don't want it to be, I can move it somewhere else. Or if I want to prevent the opponent from getting something, like if it's over here and I just ended my turn and I don't want pink to get that, I can move it, say, down to here. So that's what these powers do. We've already talked about this. This animal just counts as wild when you score. And the red panda, every time you pick up a red panda, if you have equal or more points, you score 1. So right now, if blue picked up 1, he'd be able to land on that, but as the rule goes, you get to move another space. So sometimes that might be worth 2. So what you're going to do is play 15 rounds. You have 15 of these hikers. You have 5 scoring cubes. And the game ends after both people have taken 15 turns. And and then whoever's winning at the end of the game, that's who wins. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for watching.